letting you know we are recording this for future viewing. I am going to start by sharing my screen. Okay. So again, my name is Lazette Wells. I'm joined by Kendra Roche, and today we're going to be covering information regarding direct certification and verification for your SFA. So what is direct certification? Yes.
I actually can see your screen. I'm not sure if other folks can see it.
Oh, okay. That's because I didn't share. How about that? I'm just talking to myself. Thank you so much for that, Alex.
Yeah, okay, I can see it now.
Here
Great,
we go.
Perfect.
We're cooking with gas. Okay. Okay, wonderful. Thank you for that. So what is direct certification? So direct certification allows school food authorities, also known as SFAs, to certify children as eligible for free meal benefits using participant data from other means tested programs. And it eliminates the need for household applications to be submitted by families. These programs include Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program, also known as SNAP, and Temporary Assistance for Needy Families, also known as TANF, or if the student has a homeless or a foster status. So there are so many benefits to families and SFAs for using direct certification to identify meal benefits eligibility. And they include families do not need to complete a paper household application. This reduces the administrative burdens on families to participate in the National School Lunch Program. This also decreases the number of applications that schools need to process and verify. So again, the administrative burden is reduced for SFAs. Eligible students can be added throughout the year. And what that means is if a student is not eligible for benefits via direct certification initially, they are able to be added at some point during the course of the year. It also decreases the likelihood of errors when processing applications. So the less applications that you have to process due to a student being directly certified, the less opportunities there are for errors. A student who is directly certified is free for the entire year and up to 30 days operating days into the new school year or until a new eligibility determination is made, whichever comes first. So how does direct certification work? SFA enrollment is imported to the CLIC system through various student information systems, also known as SIS. The District of Columbia schools uses Aspen, and public charter schools use the Student Information SIS. Private schools now utilize the QuickBase system to have information imported to their system. It is very important to work with your enrollment team and your registrars to ensure that CLIC or QuickBase enrollment is up to date. In addition to information received from the SFAs, data from other programs is imported into CLIC. This information comes from the Department of Human Services, or also known as DHS, the Income Maintenance Administration, also known as IMA. They identify individuals between the ages of 3 and 21 that are participating in SNAP and TANF and provide this information to CLIC as mentioned. So here is just a sample of different ways that an SFA may be able to have information imported into CLIC. As information is uploaded into the appropriate system, direct certification data is then pulled by the SFA by running a report. Here are examples of what system reports look like. So on the left, you will see what it looks like to pull data from CLIC, and on the right, you will see what it looks like to pull data from QuickBase. Direct certification is available through CLIC The direct certification information must be pulled 3 times per year. Best practices for pulling this data includes on October 1st or the first operating day of October, capture students whose prior year eligibility has expired. So again, those students who have had that first 30-day eligibility on October 1st or the first operating day in October, you want to check to see if their eligibility has expired. Another best practice is to run reports monthly or as often as possible to reach students who become eligible during the school year. So again, a student may not appear on the direct certification list at the beginning of the year, but you are able to qualify them for free meals through direct certification at any point during the school year. Another best practice is to inform families of any change in their students' eligibility status immediately. This can be very beneficial for families to recognize that if they had a financial responsibility previously, they are now deemed as free because of their new direct certification status. And be sure to save each report as they are run. A lot of times, as we conduct administrative reviews, we will be looking at the direct certification reports that are run, and it's very beneficial not only for us during the administrative review process to be able to see your list, but it also helps you to identify any newly added students or any students who may have dropped off of the direct certification list. So I will pause there if there are any questions for direct certification. Okay, hearing none, I will now turn it over to Kendra Roche, who will discuss verification.
Thank you, Lazette. And good morning, everyone. I'm Kendra Roche, and I will be presenting on verification. What is verification? So verification is a procedure that is conducted after the free and reduced price meal applications are processed at the beginning of each school year. Annually, SFAs must verify eligibility of students from a sample of household applications approved for free or reduced price meal benefits for the current school year. Verification is only required when eligibility is determined through the application process. Verification is not required for eligibility determinations made through the direct certification process. Verification must include confirmation of either income eligibility, receipt of assistance under SNAP or TANF by the child or any member of the household, and or other source categorical eligibility. The following student categories are exempt from the verification process. Students certified as migrant, homeless, runaway, and or foster. Students on the direct certification list, and siblings or household members of students on the direct certification list. Head Start students certified by a program coordinator as eligible and in a federally funded slot. So a note here, only approved farm applications should be verified. Do not include any denied applications. And a few other notes, the following are not required to conduct verification. So schools operating the Community Eligibility Provision, also known as CEP, residential child care institutions, or RCCIs, except for those with day students, where eligible students must complete a farm application. Schools in which all students are served without a separate charge for food services, and the school claims only paid reimbursement. Schools that do not have any free or reduced price eligible students. And lastly, any new SFAs who begin participation in the child nutrition program after October 1 do not need to complete the verification process in their first year of operation only. All right, so next we'll discuss the verification timeline. Step 1, everything in verification is as of the October 1 date. So step 1 is you'll determine the final sample pool size, which is the total number of farm applications approved as of October 1. Step 2 is establishing the sample size. So the sample size is the number of applications subject to verification. That would be 3% of the total approved applications or 3,000 approved applications, whichever is less. And a note on that is all fractions or decimals must be rounded up to the nearest whole number. So if you use a software program to determine your sample size for verification, be sure that it correctly rounds up to the nearest whole number to avoid verifying less than the required number of applications. Step 3 is determining your sample size method. So the standard sample size must be used unless an SFA qualifies to use an alternative sample size and notifies OSSI of their intent to use the alternate verification sample size prior to October 1st. Step 4 is to select applications for verification based on the sample size method. And a quick note here, verification may be started prior to October 1st. All right, there are 3 different sample sizes that are available for the verification process. The first one is the standard sample size, and you would use this when you would verify the lesser of 3% of all approved error-prone applications or 3,000 approved error-prone applications as of October 1st. The second is the alternate 1 sample size, which is you would use the lesser of 3% of all approved applications or 3,000 approved applications as of October 1, selected at random. The alternate 2 sample size is when you would verify the lesser of the sum of either 1,000 all approved error-prone applications or 1% of all approved error-prone applications plus the lesser of 500 approved case number applications or 0.05% approved case number applications as of October 1. All right, SFAs that are required to select the standard sample size method for school year 2023-24 were notified directly. SFAs that were required to select standards last school year and had an improved non-response rate, allowing them the option to select the alternate sample size method, were notified directly. So the standard sample size method must be used unless the SFA qualifies to use an alternate sample size and notifies OSSI of their intent to use an alternate sample size prior to October 1st. There are 2 ways that an LEA may annually qualify to use an alternate sample size based on lowered non-response rate. So lower non-response rate is when an LEA may use an alternate sample size when its non-response rate for the preceding school year was less than 20%. An improved non-response rate is an LEA with more than 20,000 children approved by application as eligible as of October 1 of the school year, may use an alternate sample size for any school year when its non-response rate for the preceding school year was less than 10% below the non-response rate for the second preceding school year. All right, so now we'll discuss choosing the sample. So SFAs that want to determine what sample size that they're going to be using can use this kind of method that we have shown on the slide here. So if you want to see an example of how to determine your sample size of the number of applications to be verified, you can follow along with us here. And if you have a calculator handy, you may want to bring that out so you can follow along with us as we work our way through this example. Okay, so first thing we have here is the number of approved applications on file as of October 1. So here it lists 137 applications. So the sample size for this will be 5 applications because 137 applications times 3% equals 4.11, and we'll always round up to the nearest whole number, which is 5. Okay, and then for this SFA, the prior school year's non-response rate was 17%, and that's per their FNS 742 report. So the next thing is, are they eligible to use an alternate sample size? And the answer is yes. And that is because their prior school year's non-response rate was less than 20%. And then next is, did they notify OSSI of their intent to use the alternate sample size by October 1? And the answer is yes. Okay. And then the last thing on here is just a record of the sample size that is selected, which is the alternate 1, and then 5 applications that are going to be selected at random. Okay, let's move on to the next sample. And you can follow along with your calculators. So this SFA has 452 applications on file as of October 1 that will have been approved as of that date. So the sample size for this SFA will be 14, and that's 452 applications times 3%, which equals 13.56 applications, and rounded up to the nearest whole number is 14. Now, their prior year's non-response rate was 23% per their FNS 742 report. So the next question is, are they eligible to use an alternate sample size? Now, before we show this on the slide, let's get a little interactive. So can someone put in the chat why this SFA is or is not eligible to use an alternate sample size? Okay, I see non-response rate is less than 20%. Anyone else? So Robin Douglas, you put the non-response rate is less than 20%. Does that mean they're eligible? Greater than. Oh, I'm sorry, I wrote that wrong, greater than. Okay, so the answer is no. They are not eligible to use an alternate sample size, and that is because their non-response rate is greater than 20%. Okay, and then the next thing here is the sample size. So they will be using the standard sample method because they must verify 14 applications selected from the error-prone applications, which is the standard method. So standard method is you use error-prone applications. Okay, so how do you know if an application is error-prone? So you can use this chart here that is shown on the slide. And it really depends on the household income amount and how closely it falls between the income eligibility limits and a determined amount based on the frequency of the income. So error-prone applications are those applications where income falls between the income eligibility limits and $1,200 of the income eligibility limits for yearly, $100 of the income eligibility limits for monthly, $50 of the income eligibility limits for twice per month, $46.15 of the income eligibility limits for every 2 weeks, and $23.07 of the income eligibility limits for weekly. And this here is the error-prone chart for school year 23-24, which shows the family size and how often income is received. So SFA should use this chart to determine which applications are error-prone so they can be tracked if needed for verification purposes if you have to use the standard method. Okay, so what we're going to show on this slide here is a template that you can use to ensure that you're selecting the correct sample size when planning to conduct verification each school year. Use this as a template and plug in your SFA's information, and you can just keep this information on file for your records. Continuing with the verification timeline, step 6 is a determining official must review each approved application selected for verification to ensure the initial determination was accurate. If applicable, you can replace applications in the sample up to 5%. For example, if review was moved from if the review moved any applications to a paid status. So if the confirming official does a second review of the initial determination of the application, and that application moves from either free or reduced to paid, then you would replace that application with a different approved application, and that would be the application that you would verify. Okay, step 6 is to inform the household in writing of its selection and to provide a list of documents or other forms of evidence that the household must submit. LEAs are expected to have a system in place to provide written notices in the parent or guardian's primary language, and to provide oral assistance if the parent or guardian has difficulty understanding the written request. This slide indicates a link to our verification template letters that the SFA should use. Continuing on, step 7 is upon the receipt of documentation, SFAs should process it immediately. Step 8, the SFA or LEA must make at least one attempt to contact the household when the household does not adequately respond to the request for verification. Non-response includes no response and incomplete or ambiguous responses that do not permit the LEA to resolve eligibility for children for their free and reduced price meals. Step 9 is to inform the households of no change in benefits, increase in benefits, or a notice of adverse action, and that would be a decrease in benefits. And by November 15th, verification should be complete. And that would mean all applications selected have either been verified or followed up with, sent notifications of change in benefits, including adverse action, and benefits have been updated accordingly. Okay, let's discuss acceptable written documentation. So it varies depending on the type of approved application. So first we have income eligible applications. So documentation for that would typically be pay stubs, and they must contain the name of the household member, the amount of income received, the frequency of the income received, and the date the income was received. Secondly, we'll discuss categorically eligible applications. So that would be an application with a case number of SNAP or TANF. And documentation for that would be an official letter or notice indicating children who are members of the household that are receiving the benefits from that program, such as a notice of eligibility, or a document from an assistance program must specify the certification time period, for example, including an expiration date. And lastly would be the other source categorically eligible, which would be foster, homeless, runaway, migrant. And that would be an official letter, notice, or list from an appropriate social service agency, program office, or coordinator, or court that would be acceptable. The required follow-up attempt must be in writing, mail or email, or by telephone or text message if you have any households that are non-responsive. So this would be the way that you would follow up with them. The SFA must make a follow-up attempt when the household does not respond to the initial request for verification, if the household submits insufficient or obsolete written evidence, if the household does not designate collateral contacts, and if the collateral contacts are unable or unwilling to provide the requested evidence. When following up with the households, the SFA must inform the household of the failure to provide adequate written evidence will result in determination of benefits. And they must attempt to attain the written evidence that is missing. And then also must contact the household to complete the verification process. Okay, and these are the 3 ways that you would follow up. So if there is no change in benefits, you would just verify the application and notify the households that there is no change in benefits for the student. If there's an increase in benefits, so let's say the application goes from reduced to free, then you would notify households that the benefits increased and increase the student's benefit. The change is effective immediately and must be implemented no later than 3 operating days from the date that verification was completed. Lastly, if there is a decrease in benefits, so that would be if an application goes from free to reduced or paid, or from reduced to paid. And then also this would be in the cases where an application exceeds income eligibility guidelines, or proof of categorical eligibility is not obtained, or the household is non-responsive. So the SFAs would notify the households of the reduction of benefits and their right to reapply for benefits at any time. SFAs must provide 10 calendar days advanced written notice to households receiving a reduction or termination of benefits prior to the actual reduction or termination. And 10 days after the notification, then you would reduce the student's benefit. A notice of adverse action must advise the household of the following. So it must advise the household of the change in benefit, the reason for the change. The household may reapply for benefits at any time during the school year, and the household's right to appeal an adverse action, including that an appeal must be filed within 10 calendar days, within the 10 calendar day advance written notice period, to ensure continued benefits while awaiting a hearing and a decision. And then also should provide the instructions on how to appeal. When a household appeals an adverse action within the 10 calendar day advance notice period, the SFA must continue to provide the benefits for which the child was originally approved until a final determination is made. Okay, let's talk about record retention. SFAs must keep the following records on file for 3 years plus the current year: the original applications and the number of applications on file as of October 1st, a summary of verification efforts, including the selection process, the notification letters sent to the households, the documents submitted by the households, including the date of submission, and that would also include the documents that were used to verify their eligibility or determine a change in benefit, and relevant correspondence between the SFA and the household, and that would include any follow-ups. The documentation of changes in benefits, and that would include the reason for the change, the household notification, and the date that it became effective, and the title and signature of the verification official. All documentation concerning appeal should also be kept on file. Okay, so what happens next for households that experience adverse action? So households affected by a reduction in benefits may reapply for benefits at any time during the school year, and the household should be required to submit income documentation or proof of participation in SNAP or TANF before approval of a new application. There are 2 main verification deadlines that SFA should be sure to meet in a timely manner. So the first is November 15th, and that is when verification should be complete. All applications selected have either been verified or followed up with, sent notices of change of benefits, including adverse action, and all benefits have been updated accordingly. Then the second date is December 15th, and that is when the FNS 742 report is due. So you would complete the FNS 742 report and upload via Orchard in the document section of your National School Lunch Program or NSLP application for the current school year. Okay, so let's get into the FNS 742 a little more, and this is also known as the Verification Collection Report. Okay, so this slide shows what the FNS 742 report looks like. This form reports the SFA's information in 5 different sections. So section 1 is where you would report the total number of schools and number of students as of the last operating day in October. Section 2 is only for SFAs that are operating a special provision option, so that would be like CEP, and they will complete this section as of the last operating day in October. All others who are not participating in any special provisions should leave this section blank. Section 3 is where all SFAs must report, and it asks how many students were directly certified as free, and those students are not eligible to, they're not subject to verification. And these numbers are going to be reported as of the last operating day in October. Then we have section 4, which is all SFAs with approved farm applications would report in this section the number of approved applications on file as of October 1, and the number of students as of the last operating day in October. And then lastly, section 5 would be All SFAs with approved farm applications will report the results of their verification efforts based on the type of farm application that was verified. And then another thing that also is included in the verification report would be if you have to verify any applications for cause. So that would be called verification for cause. That would be any applications that are verified for cause in addition to the annually required verification process. So SFAs have an obligation to verify any questionable applications, and SFAs verify any questionable applications, including on a case-by-case basis, verifying any applications where the SFA is made aware of additional income or additional persons in the household. So the number of applications verified for cause and the results of those verifying, the results of those applications that are verified for cause would be noted in section VC1, which is going to be all the way at the bottom of this form. So the applications that are verified for cause do not contribute towards your sample size or the verification process. And you'll just want to make sure that you read the verification collection report instructions very carefully to ensure that it is completed. Okay, so on this slide, we're showing a bunch of resources that can be used to ensure that verification is conducted completely and that all forms are completed correctly. So we encourage you to please utilize all the resources that are listed on this slide. So we have the eligibility manual for the eligibility manual for school meals, the verification template letters, which is on our OSSI website, OSSI's standard operating procedure for the use of alternate sample size documents. Then we have the error-prone chart for the current school year. We also have the income eligibility guidelines for the current school year. We have the FNS 742 report, also known as the verification collection report. And lastly, the USDA verification toolkit. Okay, so Lazette and I are here to answer any questions that you may have. Feel free to come off of mute or type your questions in the chat.
Thank you, Kendra. So we will now open up for anyone who has any questions. Happy to answer them. Don't be shy.
Okay, I see one question that was in the chat from earlier. Joshua, you said, where can we find that chart? Which chart were you referring to?
I think it was the error-prone chart.
Okay, so that we actually do have posted on the OSSI website. I'll drop a link in the chat.
Cool, thank you.
You're welcome.
So I'm not hearing or seeing any questions. I mean, so that means that you guys are verification and direct certification champs. Okay, so I see a question that just came in from Christopher. So if we do not receive any notifications by the 15th of November, that makes it an automatic reduction of benefits. Is that correct? So Christopher, are you asking if you do not receive any notifications from families by the 15th of November as part of the verification process? Okay. So it's okay. So Christopher, you're asking so Kendra, if you want to take this one because it sounds like a verification question. If they do not receive any notifications by the 15th of November, does that mean that they automatically have a reduction of benefits?
Okay, so that's a great question. Remember, the complete verification process should be done by November 15th. So by November 15th, you should not still be waiting to receive documentation from the household. So if they're going to have a reduction in benefits, they need a 10 calendar day notice. So you want to make sure that you're sending that notice out in time in order for the day that you would change the benefit status of this child to be done by November 15th. So I like to say you start like the first week of October, give them 2 weeks to respond, send a follow-up notice like the middle of October. And then if you don't hear from them by the end of October, I would start drafting that that notice of adverse action at the beginning of November so that if they have a full 10 calendar day advance notice. So yeah, I would say if you don't hear from them by the beginning of November, I would just go ahead and send that notice. And then if they don't respond during that 10 calendar day period, then they would automatically have the reduction of benefits to paid. You're welcome.
Thank you. Thank you. And so I see a question from Alba that says, will a notification be sent to us when to start the process? So what I will say, Alba, is this is your notification. So we purposely conducted this webinar right at the time when you should be conducting verification. So as we stated earlier, it is going to be applications that you have on file as of October 1st or the first operating day in October, which is yesterday. So we timed this in perfect timing for you to begin the verification process. And then just moving forward, October 1st should be when you should be starting a verification process. And we typically do send out reminders for things like this.
And just to add on to that, if October 1st falls on like a holiday or a weekend, then you would go with the first operating day in October.
So Hakeem asked, are there going to be office hours that I can have my team join? So what I will say, Hakeem, is that we do not have office hours for verification. However, there are two things that you'll be able to utilize to share with your team. First and foremost, this session is being recorded, so we will be sharing this with you all. I haven't determined if we're going to be putting it on our website. Typically, we will, but if nothing else, we will be certainly sharing this recording and the resources with everyone who attended today. And the second thing that I will say is if you have any questions regarding verification, by all means, your program specialist is your point of contact, so feel free to reach out to them. You are welcome, Hakeem. Okay, I'm going to leave it open for like 7 more seconds. Again, I think we did an amazing job since we have so few questions. Or, just plugging that although we are sharing this resource and conducting the webinar today, that does not mean that we are off limits. You can't ask any further questions. As I mentioned, by all means, be sure to check in with your program specialist if you have any questions during the verification season. I'll give our folks a couple of seconds and see if we have any more questions. Okay, hearing none, I see a lot of thanks in the chat. So I'm assuming that everyone has the information that they need. So again, I just wanted to say thank you to everyone for joining us and sharing this information with you guys. We do anticipate sending out the slides and the recording again. So if you have to share this with your team, I know verification process takes a whole effort. So we will be sure to share that with you all. And again, if you have any questions, reach out to your program specialist. So thank you all for joining us, and we'll hang on for a couple of seconds if anyone else has any questions. All right, thank you everyone, and enjoy the rest of your Tuesday morning.
Thank you, everyone.